Okay, today I'm going to be working on the tie rods and the wheel bearings on this 2008 Chevy Impala. And I took it to get it aligned, and they said that both wheel bearings on the front were bad and one of the tie rods. So I'm going to start by jacking this up and taking the wheel off. Okay, I did jiggle the wheel while it was still on and the car was raised up, and it did seem to have play in it both directions. So next step is to take this brake caliper off. Okay, by the way, the lug nuts were 19 millimeter. What I've done here is I've gotten the caliper off. You don't have to take that off, but it's a lot easier to get to these brace bolts, and so I'm gonna take them off now. Okay, that was a 15 millimeter, and it's kind of tough to get off, so I use an extension. If you tilt the wheel out, you can access it better too if you've got a power gun. So anyway, next is this little screw right here. By the way, the actual caliper bolts they should have been about a 13 millimeter, but my 1/2 inch fit a lot tighter, so I used a 1/2 inch. Alright, I'm going to take off this little screw there. Okay, I got that out. It was a T15. And so now I got to take the axle nut off. I don't know if I can get it off. I might have to put the wheel back on, but we'll see. Okay, I got the axle nut loose. If you don't have a gun like this, you might want to get it loose before you raise the car. But it came off really easy. It's a 34 millimeter. Okay, the rotor was stuck, and so I put the nuts back on, and I sprayed it right inside the lug nuts, around the lug nut, or right up here. Sprayed in there, and then I sprayed on the back too, and I just kept hammering it and turning it and hammering it and turning it, and it finally broke loose. Okay, what I've done is I've sprayed these bolts on both sides, and I'm using this stuff here, but PB Blaster will work too, should work. And I sprayed them a little earlier too. I sprayed them in the back. I don't know if you can see, but now I'm going to try to take them loose. I also sprayed way in there too. Okay, I got this bottom right one out from the back, and now I'm working on the very top one. As you can see, I'm just using a 6.13 millimeter extended socket with a small extension, and I used a breaker bar to break it loose, and now I've got a ratchet. Okay, I got two out, and as you see, it helped to turn the wheel, so now I'm going to turn the wheel the other way and try to get that other one on the other side. Okay, I turned my wheel. Now I've got to unhook the ABS plug here. Okay, I don't know if you can see, I took up pliers and a screwdriver and got the tabs out, and then I just pulled it apart. Okay, I got this one broke loose, and I'm just using my deep socket 13 with an adapter to go to the ratcheting 1/2 inch. If you go under the tie rod, you can get a little bit more swing on it. Okay, I got that third bolt out, and now I'm going to straighten the wheel here and work on getting that loose from the axle. Okay, I'm in the process of getting this bearing off. It's kind of frozen on there, but I'll tell you what I did. It is coming. You can see I've got this plate loose on all sides now. What I did was I screwed these screws back in. Let me show you here. Okay, I screwed these screws back in from the back. I just screwed them in 2 or 3 turns, and then I hammered on them. And the bottom ones, you know, you can reach with the hammer. On the top, I had to put the long socket on it in order to be able to hammer it. So I got the bottom ones out a little bit, and then I worked on the top one, and then I just kind of rotated around. Now that I've got it pretty loose, I've been putting this socket right here and hitting the top of it, you know, like this, and that's been helping to pull out the top. So I'm just gonna keep doing that and keep loosening it. I also put a screwdriver in right here and hammered the screwdriver to try to pull it out there too. I did try this 7-ton puller, but I used that initially, but it didn't seem to do anything. So that's when I put the bolts back in from the back. Now, when you're hammering on the bolts from the back, you kind of gotta alternate turning the wheel in and out so you can reach those nuts a little easier, those bolts a little easier. Okay, I put this puller back on. It's a 7-pound puller I got from O'Reilly's, and I'm gonna keep that on now while I pound on the bolts from the back. I realized that I could use this tool and I could pound on these extensions here to get the hub out of the place rather than pounding on the bolts in the back. So I used all methods, and I just kept alternating and pounding and alternating, and this definitely helped to pull the hub out. But I did have a pipe that fit over my breaker bar, and then put that over, and then I put the 1 1/4 over that. Okay, so with 2 people on each side, you just work your way tightening the center bolt, and you'll hear it crack. It had to crack about 5 times before it finally totally loosened up. It took about 15 minutes. Now, one thing in between cracks, or even before it cracks, when you get it really tight and it's just not popping, what you need to do is take this sledgehammer. Don't use a small hammer like that. Use a really heavy hammer. While it's tight, just hammer, take your breaker bar off and hammer on that socket several times, and then go back to tightening it, and then hammer it with the sledgehammer, and eventually it's going to give. Now, you only need to do this if your axle is welded to the inside of the hub. You can try the sledgehammer first without the tool here, and I tried that on the other side, and the hammer just did not loosen it. So, but I did get it loose this way. If you can't get it loose this way, you're gonna have to take the whole shoulder off and take the axle out, which I've seen people have to do that, but this should work for you.
Did I get in the shower?
So one thing I did on the other side, which I wish I hadn't done, was I pulled the hub all the way out before I started to break loose the axle. I didn't realize the axle was frozen. But ideally, you don't want to pull the hub all the way out from the shoulder, just probably about maybe 1/4 of an inch to 3/8 of an inch. So it has a little stability there, maybe probably 1/4 of an inch. And then start loosening and freeing your hub. That'll give your axle. That'll give your axle a little bit more play too as you push it in. So anyway, if you have the problem I had, I hope you can get it. Here's the old hub from the right side, and you'll see how I did mangle it, just because I had it all the way out of its groove when I was trying to take the axle loose. Okay, so we got everything off and out, and this is the new part. I cleaned up everything with sandpaper and WD-40 and paper towels, and then I put anti-seize there and some axle grease. So make sure and get your plate on and route your plug through. And so I'm gonna push this up in there, line up the holes, and get my my bolts started. Okay, we got the 3 bolts in, and make sure you tighten those using an extension pipe on your ratchet. Make sure you get those real tight. And now we're gonna tighten up the axle nut. Oh, I did want to remind you, plug in your ABS sensor there. And I just used a breaker bar with a deep 13 socket. Once in a while I use that small extension. Okay, I've got my pry bar there to hold it while I torque down that nut. Okay, so I forgot to mention, once you get the pads in, what you want them make sure they do is move like that, because they'll need to come off the rotor on both sides. Just check both sides. And so anyway, that's it for that.